or whatever. She said this is
Consider a Watergate Market retail condominium feasibility study.
Mr. Mayor, because I live within 500 feet of the project, I have to recuse myself.
Okay, I put this item on the agenda partly in response to the outcry that came out with the General Plan Committee, but actually, taking a look at this situation, if we were to establish retail condos, affordable retail condos, I think we would have a good project there, and we would be using the agency to really benefit the people in the community and in the Watergate area. So I'm just asking for a feasibility study to look into the possibility of creating retail condos at the Watergate Center. So.
Ken, I'm a little unclear on this. This is private property, and what are you suggesting here? Are you suggesting that the agency acquire this property?
I'm suggesting that the agency develop the idea of creating a project there which would create retail condos at this center. If we create retail condos and if the agency writes down the cost of those condos, then it's almost like affordable housing. If you want to create affordable housing, then someone's going to buy a condominium, the agency writes down the cost of that condo, and then the person can afford to occupy it. Well, in this particular case, we would be using agency money to write down the cost of retail condominiums, which encourages small business development. One of the most difficult things for a small business person to accomplish today is to have affordable circumstance where they can exist. The rates, the rents are so high.
Ken, I don't think anybody disagrees with you that the retail condo idea is good, but I would like Mr. Biddle to comment on what is the legal procedure here? Are we in any way jeopardizing ourselves by, could we talk about a feasibility study that is more generic so that it doesn't target the owner of the Watergate property?
You could do a more generic one, but I think if we did one on this particular property, it would really show the benefit of this and how it would benefit the community. I mean, if you create a series of affordable condos here, and when I use the word affordable, it means that it's such a desirable economic circumstance that it would attract perhaps the best retail options that could exist in an environment where an individual could really sustain their continued operation without having to worry about the increase of a landlord, getting a percentage rent, paying triple net charges. So,
we all agree with that basic. Mr. Biddle, could you comment on how we can proceed?
Well, certainly you can look at a more generic, model of some sort of retail condominium, and likewise you could look at a more specific one at that site. And if that's something that the agency wants to pursue, then you could move forward with a request for proposals through an owner participation process. I mean, that's not something that's out of the realm of the agency's abilities to do.
Hang on a sec, though. I have a question for you, because the peninsula isn't in a project development
that's
area.
Councilmember Cassis was just asking me about it, and looking at our maps, the Watergate office complex, and definitely we would have to reconfirm this, but I think this parcel as well is in the 1976 project area. It is the Watergate condominiums, the residential piece, and then further west on the peninsula that is outside any of the project areas. But I'm fairly certain this parcel is in the 76 area.
So I guess I'm asking for a specific. I'd like to look at the feasibility of creating condos there, because if it's not feasible, then it wouldn't pay for us to consider a project there. But if it is feasible, then from that point we could consider a project.
I don't think we want to move to acquire that property.
We're not moving to do anything. We're just moving to take a look at the feasibility of whether it makes sense. That's what I'm trying to do.
You look at it because you want to change the current use.
No, you don't want. You absolutely don't want to change the current use. You want to enhance the current use. You want to make sure that the Watergate market has the ability to buy their space, that they can stay there in perpetuity. you take a look at this property, and you look at the Watergate Market, you could add an additional story on top of the Watergate Market and still be within the 30-foot height limit. And then as a redeveloped project, you could take a look at the tax increment that comes out of the project itself, and then you could invest it back in that project to make those condos affordable. Once you make those retail condos affordable, you can attract the best retail tenants there. You could turn that center around, you could upgrade it, and then what would happen to the quality of life at Watergate if you could get retail tenants there that had sustainability, that are locally serving, and that the community could choose who locates there. The beauty of this is, it's just like when you have a residential affordable unit, the agency gets to choose who can buy them. Well, in this situation, now the city gets to choose who can buy these condos. So now we have a situation where you don't have a landlord that's going to rent to any particular user. Now you would have the community choosing who could locate there. And that's probably one of the most beneficial things out of this, because now the community decides who can buy those units, and once those units are bought, those people are in their own business, the city has nothing to do with it, and it's only if they fail, if they go out of business, then that same affordable opportunity is passed on to the next potential buyer. So once they're affordable, you would not have any problem selling them. I mean, that's the thing, that center could be turned around. The agency investment would be realized because you'd be putting people in business. They'd be having increased sales tax, increased business license tax, because it's all based on gross receipts, and it would be a win-win for everybody. The people at Watergate, their units would appreciate in value, because now they wouldn't have to travel very far. They could have the best bakery, the best shoe store, the best drugstore, and everything that everybody wants to see over there. So I'm just asking for a feasibility study on whether it makes economic sense to pursue a project there to have affordable retail condominiums. So it's just an information gathering to see if it's even feasible. So that's what I'm asking for.
2 years ago, we had a retreat, and one of the people that spoke at the retreat was a consultant, a woman who we hired to comment on retail condos, and I thought that she presented well, and she had cogent arguments, and her basic message was that retail condos are not necessarily the best for the city. So I was persuaded by that presentation.
Well, if you want to create locally serving retail, the only way you're going to do it is to create a circumstance where a merchant has the ability to succeed. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at chain stores. You're going to be looking at the kind of stores that people don't want to see in their area. And that, I mean, I was in the retail business for 22 years. I know what it takes to make it successful, and this is no different than creating an affordable residential unit, except in this case, the agency investment allows everybody in the area to benefit from this investment instead of only one individual where you have a residential unit. So this is just a feasibility study, and so...
My critique is that there are two different things that are being discussed. The term retail condo is being used, and that term is a fairly precise thing, and what you're describing is very different from retail condo. And so, because what you're providing in the scheme is the ability of someone or some entity to dictate what the use is going to be there. Either it's the community that says, well, we don't want X, we want Y, or it's the redevelopment agency. And so once you add that ability to dictate the use, then it's not really a retail condo. That's a scheme that I have put forward for other locations, but it doesn't have to be retail condo. It can be regulated in a number of ways. It can be regulated through the zoning ordinance. It can be regulated by the redevelopment agency owning property and then deciding, well, we're going to sell the property, but we're going to retain the right to approve the use. So that's kind of the scheme that is happening at the Flatiron Building on San Pablo.
Well, that's not a good idea, because there you're trying to you're trying to restrict a private owner and his ability to lease a center. This is a different circumstance. This is where the people would own their own unit, and the only uses that could certainly be provided are the ones that are allowed, and where the city gets to choose who can buy them. Right then and there, the city is having the opportunity to control the use and only what the people want to see. You want a circumstance where the people in the community are going to get the kind of stores that they wanted. I mean, you certainly came forward when we wanted to have the Promenade and we wanted to have Asnermendy Bakery. Now there we made a very bad financial decision. I mean, I think the bakery is a wonderful asset, but the city has no business assuming a triple net lease and then turning around and subletting to a particular tenant. That is a bad financial idea.
Yeah, well, it was a bad idea, and at the time, I was suggesting that the redevelopment agency should reacquire the property so that it could have that control as a property owner, not as a tenant and then subtenant, because that involved the triple nets, the CAM charges that are onerous for tenants.
See, I don't think we want to own the property. That's not what we want to do. We just want to create an affordable opportunity for a merchant to be successful, and by having these retail condos. That's what the feasibility study is all about. The feasibility study will determine the economics of it. It will determine whether the sale of those units is adequate to meet the sale price of the property, and I'm sure that by adding the increased density on top of the Watergate market, you would probably be adding at least another 25% to the density of that project, and that's what's going to create the additional tax increment that can go right back into the project to make it affordable. I'm not suggesting that any agency money be taken away from anything else we're doing, only the money that would be derived from the tax increment from that project put back in it to make those units affordable and to make that center turn over and to give the people what they want, the best stores, and to improve the quality of life. I mean, if we're serious about increasing small business opportunities, the only way you're going to do it is to create a circumstance where a small business person can make a living and can be sustainable. In this situation, if somebody buys one, they'll stay there forever as long as they're successful, and hopefully, if the agency gives somebody an opportunity to be successful in business, they're going to be more thankful to the community, they're going to be willing to give more back, and once you improve the environment at Watergate, then all the value of all those units is appreciated because of the improved environment. So I'm just
Mayor Bukowski, in the interest of time, is there any support for the mayor's proposal?
Well,
at this time,
I am intrigued by this idea. However, I feel that to move ahead with something at Watergate without the community knowing about it and without some consensus that, in fact, there'd be a willingness to increase density there, I just feel like it's a cart before the horse.
Okay, so then when we go back to Nora's point, let's just do a generic feasibility study on retail condominiums and then go from that route. Would you support that?
The other issue about that particular location is the potential market pool is very limited there, and so that market's been struggling for a long time there, and without a larger pool to draw from, I'm not sure any other kind of small business is going to have any better kind of results there.
Well, let me suggest here now, Dick, since we're going to change this item to a generic approval of a retail condo study, I mean, is that within the purview of the Brown Act?
I guess what I would agree to is looking at where in the city this idea actually could have some traction.
Well, I'm positive that at the Watergate Center it could work, but if you don't want to examine the possibility of doing that, then the generic approach is the only one I could say. I mean, at this point, if you want to look at retail condos, it's a really good thing to do because we have so much retail that we're building all over the city that the idea of creating affordable spaces is what's going to get them leased, it's going to get better sales in the city, and it's going to create more opportunity. So I guess I'm going to change this item and ask if we can do a generic study.
Mayor Bukowski, could I suggest an alternative? I think I remember that presentation, John, and that was a very savvy woman. She really knew retail. Before we embark on another analysis or another, kind of feasibility study. Let's see if we can find out who made that presentation. And I think it was a PowerPoint. Let's bring that back and see if we can't recapture that information before we move ahead on the feasibility study. Would I have support for that suggestion?
Yes.
Yeah, that's something.
All right, let's move along.
Okay, next item.